Everyone knows the Red Sox have a bona fide ace. That one guy you can hand the ball to every fifth day and know they're going to give you a better chance to win that ball game than pretty much anybody else living. That is Garrett Crochet. But what if I told you the Red Sox actually have two aces right now? Would that make you feel pretty good about October? Would that make you feel pretty good about their first postseason trip in 4 years? Hopefully that happens, because it would for me. But then again, a lot of really good Red Sox teams have had an ace that can dominate game one of any playoff series. That's what you got when you got Garrett Crochet. A lot of Red Sox teams have had that. They had Pedro in 99 and 2003. They had Dice K in 2008. People forget that season. They had Chris Sale in 2017. They had Nate Eovaldi in 2021. But those aren't the great Red Sox teams that go down in history, right? Those would be 2004, 2007, 2013, and 2018. Those teams didn't have an ace. They had two aces. Pedro and Schilling. Beckett and Schilling. Lester and Lackey. Sale and Price. That's where we're at with the 2025 Red Sox. They don't have one ace. They have two of them. And the last couple of months have really proven that. Because Brayan Bello is the player on this Red Sox team that can take them from a young, playoff-hungry team to a legit World Series contender in the American League. Bello's transformation this year has been one of the most promising signs I would say the Red Sox have had in their starting pitching development in 15 years, almost 20. No one's really talking about him because the conversation in the Cy Young race is Garrett Crochet and Tarek Skubal. Conversation around the Red Sox is Roman Anthony and Alex Bregman. But it's been Bello that has elevated the expectations of this entire team. For the last 2 months, this kid has been lights out. And he's been frustrating before, right? He was the opening day starter in 2024. Like, everyone knew that Bello was going to be something. He was going to be the first really talented Red Sox starter that they've developed in 20 years. The first true ace that they've developed since John Lester. And honestly, through the first couple of years, it had the promise, but didn't exactly have the results. He looked a lot more like Clay Buchholz, another pitcher they developed, who was meh, than he was John Lester. But that's changed in 2025. In 15 starts since the beginning of June, Brayan Bello has 12 quality starts and a 2.75 ERA. That's fifth best in the majors in that span. And I'm not just cherry picking, because his 2.99 ERA for the season is better than Max Fried, Framber Valdez, Carlos Rodon, and probably most notably for Red Sox fans, it's better than trade deadline target Joe Ryan. Now, certainly a Joe Ryan trade wouldn't have made the Red Sox any worse, right? I wasn't going to say no to that. But for the first time this decade, they have a legit number 2 starter that can strike fear into an opponent in a playoff series. That's what Brayan Bello gives them. Now, I'm not letting Craig Breslow off the hook, because if they had Crochet, Bello, and Joe Ryan, they'd probably be the favorite to win the American League. It'd be really tough to beat those 3 starters in a playoff series in a best of 7. So I'm not going to let Craig Breslow off the hook entirely, because Brayan Bello's been awesome, right? But it is worth appreciating how much Bello has grown, because what's crazy is how he got there this year. Because growing up and coming through the system, he was constantly compared to Pedro Martinez. And of course, being signed by the Red Sox and coming out of the Dominican Republic certainly doesn't help that narrative, right? It only boosts it. Doesn't help kind of ease the pain off his shoulders, the weight off his shoulders. And it was because Bello, obviously a Dominican kid, not the biggest guy in the world, but could throw hard, and he was a swing and miss guy. He was a power pitcher. Even as recently as last year, that's what he was. Guy who had a lot of whiffs, had a lot of strikeouts. But because of that, put a lot of guys on base. He didn't go deep into games, and he struggled with lineups the third time through the order. That's where Bello started to look more like Clay Buchholz than he did John Lester. Couldn't trust him going in through that third time around the order. The splits were gross. And you can't have an ace that doesn't go into the 6th inning, 7th inning. You can't have it. Well, how about this? In his last 16 starts, Bello has failed to make the 6th inning just once. He did that 11 times in 30 starts last year. More than a third of his starts. And by the way, I had to draw a line somewhere because there were a bunch that were 5 1/3. A bunch. That's more than half his starts were 5 1/3 or lower. And again, he's done it by changing the way he pitches. He's done it by not being a major strikeout pitcher anymore. Bello's going deeper into games because of his career low 6.9 strikeouts per nine. Instead, he became one of the great weak contact pitchers. Instead, he became one of the great weak contact pitchers in all of baseball. Hitters are only hitting a 6% barrel rate against him in 2025. It's really tough to hit the ball hard against Brayan Bello. You're not going to strike out against him as much as you did in years past, but it's really tough to get on base against him. It's really tough to have a meaningful extra base hit against him. I'm going to give you a player A and a player B scenario, okay? We're going to look at each of their last 11 starts, which spans most of the last 2 months, okay? In 11 starts since the beginning of July, pitcher A has given up 20 runs in 70 1/3 innings. That's good for a 2.57 ERA. That's legit. That is most important games of the season so far. Player A, pitcher A, has been lights out. Of course, that pitcher A is Brayan Bello. Been absolute nails for them, especially in the last 2 months. In that same time span, in 11 starts, pitcher B has given up 20 runs in 70 innings. Same amount of earned runs in a third of an inning less than Brayan Bello. That pitcher B is none other than Garrett Crochet, the guy who could well win the American League Cy Young Award this year. At worst, he'll finish second. In the dog days, the last 11 starts, they have been identical. Garrett Crochet, Brayan Bello, ace 1, ace 2. That's what makes this Red Sox team scary different. It's not just one ace. You've had legitimately 2 of the best starting pitchers in the game the last 2 months. And oh, by the way, Lucas Giolito's been pretty good too. Not for nothing. I worry about the innings, just like I do for Crochet with Giolito coming off Tommy John. I do. But he's been pretty legit, and he shoved the other night. And Bello shoved last night in an effort where he doesn't even get the win because the Red Sox win it in the 9th inning. 6 2/3, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, 11 ground balls. In 3 of his last 6 starts, he's had double-digit ground balls. To me, that is more important to me than the strikeouts. It really is. And you want to do the same thing where we go back the last 11 starts for him? He has had double-digit ground ball outings in, quick math here, 7 of his last 11 starts. The kid has completely transformed himself. And that ERA just keeps going down. Every start, he's under 3, 15th best in the majors. 2 aces, man. That is something that AL teams should fear in the postseason. The kid who was being called Mini Pedro growing up and through the system is starting to take on the look of Pedro Martinez here. I know that's crazy. Pedro's my favorite player of all time, and his peak will probably never be equaled. But right now, the last 2 months, the Red Sox have 2 aces. That's going to be awfully tough to beat in a 7-game playoff series. It's going to be nearly impossible to beat in a best of 3, best of 5. when they're throwing those guys at you the way they've been going, 1 and 2, Garrett Crochet's great. You needed an ace. You needed to bring Crochet in here. That's not to take away from Crochet. Lucas Giolito is going to be super important. But by getting Crochet, you would almost let the ship sail of Brayan Bello being a true ace. You'd be like, okay, he's going to be a good, solid, middle-of-the-rotation guy. And instead what you got was a second ace. And they're both cheap compared to what they're, like, given what they've been doing this year. So Crochet elevated him. Roman Anthony elevates him. Alex Bregman elevates him. Trevor Story, Aroldis Chapman, they all elevate him. But only one, Brayan Bello, makes them a truly scary team in the American League playoffs because of how you line up pitcher number 1, pitcher number 2, especially in these short series. So to me, Brayan Bello, the biggest revelation on this Red Sox team, full of revelations. Again, Story, Chapman, Bregman, Roman Anthony for just a half a year. The fact that they are better without Rafael Devers than they were with him. Those are all revelations. The book of them. But Brayan Bello is revelation number 1 and the biggest reason why this Red Sox team, the Red Sox team that you had in mid-June, the same roster, he is the reason why they're now legit World Series contenders on Labor Day weekend. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's coming at you every weekday live at high noon Eastern time, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. We talk Boston sports and nothing but on this channel so that you don't have to touch that sports talk radio dial. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week. Again, here on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts as well, talking nothing but Boston sports.